As you can see, I've started to make a kite using the multi-panel sail I made on a prior video. I have installed the bow. I have put stops on the bow where the upper bridle yoke will go, and I super glued those in. That's why I have this wax paper here, is to prevent that from sticking the bow directly to the sail where I don't want it to. Now the only other part I have to do is this hem area on the bow. And what I'm going to do is use this T8000 glue, same glue I used on the bow, and I'm going to fold over some of that hem onto the bow, but very little. I'm going to cut along this wooden stick. I want this stick here because I'm going to use a hot cutter, and I don't want the hot cutter to actually be in contact with the carbon fiber, because carbon fiber, when it's in high heat, will actually break. And in fact, I've had several kite bows break by having them just in my kite box in the sun. And the kite box just created a much hotter climate, I guess you'd call it, for the kite, and too hot for the carbon fiber. And the carbon fiber just bent and broke on several kites. So be careful with heat, because it can, in regard to carbon fiber, because it can damage the fiber. So what I'm going to do is just use this stick, and this will be the width of the stick will be the hem, with the exception of this area here. I'm just going to run it like this right along the bow. I'm only gently touching the bow with a stick. I'm not really pressing against it. Now do the same on this side. Well, let me see here. I'll go from there to there. Now just peel away this excess hem and apply the glue, and then I'll roll that remaining hem, as small as it is, I'll roll it up onto the bow itself to create more of a hem around the bow to make sure it's bonded well to the sail. Well, I've applied the glue, and now I'm just going to raise it up with this toothpick, and then this little extra hem down here at the wingtip I'm going to fold over as soon as I get my bow setter off. I'll do the same over here. It's a very, very small hem. It just goes a little bit around the bow. Maybe halfway up on the bow. I don't think I even need this, really. This glue is quite good at bonding carbon fiber to this polyfilm. So now I will just use my fingers and continue the process holding the bow in place. I don't want to distort the shape of the bow while I'm gluing it in place. I want the bow to keep its natural shape undistorted as possible. So this is a pretty simple process, and then after this, all I'm going to do is remove the bow setter, which is just a piece of aluminum yardstick that I cut a bunch of notches in, and the notches align with the wingtip dimension of different kite plans I make. That way I can use the exact length bow when I'm making the kite and know that it'll all fit together. I don't have to trim it later or anything like that. So now I'm going to remove the bow setter, which is partly here secured by the glue. There, yeah, that glue sticks well. So there, now I think the kite, then I'm just going to put battens here and here, and then do the bridle. But first I'm going to install the spine. Now the spine, I have already applied double-sided tape to one side. What I'm going to do is peel that off, the paper backing on part of it. I'm going to raise the bow up. I'm going to touch the nose of the spine to the nose of the sail. I'm going to pull the rest of the backing of the tape off. Align the spine with the line I drew on my sail for the location of the spine. Press it down, and that's done. No glue on the spine, only tape, as I did also for the reinforcement of the nose leading edge. This is hard to see because it's relatively a clear piece of mylar I put up there. So now, see if we can remove this from the work surface here. And that's what we got. Now I'll put my bridle on, make the holes, put the battens on, and then what I will do is I'll drill a hole through the spine using my Dremel, small diameter hole, here and down here near the wingtip line. And between there and there I'll put a tension line using a top line hitch as an adjustable knot to allow me to adjust the amount of bend I get in the spine. And I'm going to bend the spine from this point to the nose. I could do it from here to the nose or anywhere up here, any place, but I like it right about here. I like to have the bend near the wingtip line but forward of it. I'm not sure that's important, but that's what I've come to like in how the kite performs, so that's what I generally will do. To cut the holes in the sail for the bridle, on the upper bridle, I use this, it's called a thread zapper. It's a hot knife, battery operated, and a very, very fine tip on it. And then I use an eraser shield, tape down, raise the bow up. I don't want to touch it on the hot tip of this. Cut around it, melting it really, what I'm doing. And with plastic or synthetic materials, melting is the very best way to make a hole, because it seals the plastic material as it melts the hole, so that it doesn't have a tendency to continue tearing or ripping later during flight when the wind pressure's on the sail. So now I have two holes for the upper bridle, and the lower bridle I'll put down here. I'll just melt a hole on either side of the spine, or I might drill a hole through the spine, depending on how I feel at the time. Either way works. Neither one's particularly better in terms of flight. I put reinforcing tape at points on the kite that I know from experience are places it could be damaged. And that's right here, where the leading edge nose meets the bow. The nose itself, the wingtips, and the tail. I want to make sure that the sail is bonded well to the spine at the tail. So I use tape for that, and there's no real magic in how it all goes together, but generally I'll do this and use a knife to cut it. The sticky side is up on this tape right here, and use my trusty toothpick here, raise up one part of it, fold it over, and the other part. Didn't get it on exactly right, even, did I? Well, that's okay. It won't change anything. So there's the nose. Now I'm going to use a piece of tape on each of the places where the bow meets the nose leading edge right here. Again, I'll just put it here, as you can see, about a little bit on the bow and a little bit on the leading edge of the nose. And right here, I'll just put that right against the bow. And do the same on the other side. Even though I have a little bit of a extra hem at the wingtip, I still put a piece of tape to protect it, because the flying line can easily get jammed between the bow and the sail right at that point. And so reinforcing it ensures that that won't cause any trouble. And then for the bottom, for the spine, I just use a very thin piece of tape, very narrow, I guess I'd say, and just put it from the back to the front. And that just helps to keep the sail from working itself loose, which it can do because there's so much vibration at that point on the sail. So now I am really ready to do the battens, the tension line, and the bridle. When I install the battens, all I do is run a line of glue on the line I drew on the sail, and that's where the batten's going to go. it is true that sometimes I don't always get it lined up exactly correct. But if I wiggle the batten around a little bit, it'll pick up the glue and seems to bond well enough. I put small pieces of tape at the ends of all of the battens just to make sure that they will stay in place, because once one of the ends is loose, the entire batten will become dislodged quite easily. Straightforward, very simple. So in, I'll have to let the glue dry now, of course, but then I'll put small pieces of tape on each end of each batten. Now I just put on the upper bridle, and one of the things that is important here is not to allow it to go over the nose of the kite. And the lower bridle, all the bridle lines, I use beeswax and just run the line through it a couple times. And I use a lark's head knot here. I just tie a loop about 2 inches long at the one end of the lower bridle, put it underneath the upper bridle line, and then poke the knot through and around, and then just pull it. And this provides an adjustable knot to be able to slide it along this line to allow me to adjust for any slight variance right to left based on the carbon fiber itself, the sail material, a slight inaccuracy in my building. Yep, it does happen. And then I'll attach the lower bridle point here. And put the toe point on. Now on the lower bridle, I don't want it to go any farther than the tail. Otherwise, during flight, most likely it will get tangled in the tail. You wouldn't think it would, but by golly it does. So I just tie any knot that holds. It's no special knot here, just whatever holds, use that. And then I just cut off the tail and put my toe point, which is just another loop, and I just attach it to the lower bridle line, put it under, put the knot of the loop through and around, and that allows me to adjust the kite angle to the wind while I'm out on the flying field. I attached my tension line right here so that I can adjust the amount of bend in the spine. So I can have a lot of bend like this, or I can just have a little bit of bend or no bend. So now I'm ready to test fly the kite, have some fun.